Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, I am sitting down with a very inspiring woman who just released a documentary on Amazon called Conviction. She was a former fashion executive and decided it just wasn't fulfilling and decided to go and follow her dream. And her dream really was to go and help people that had been wrongfully convicted, which led up to this film. And might I add that this woman did this in under a year, which is unbelievable breaking into this business. So with that being said, I'm gonna bring on my guest for today on Next to Madison, Jias Wertz. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you so much for being here. So I mentioned that you were a former fashion executive. So tell us a little bit about that before we jump into kind of your new life now.
Yeah, sure. So I started in the fashion industry really young, first in retail and then transitioned to the corporate side of fashion. And I worked in the industry for almost 20 years, like 17, 18 plus years. And I loved it. I was on the business side. So it was a very corporate type job. And then as I got older in my 30s, I was like, I just didn't feel that I was really contributing anything, and I wanted to do something different and something that would be just more helpful for, just to like make some kind of impact in the world and not just be selling clothes and making more money for already really successful businesses. And so I decided to go into filmmaking. That's kind of how I ended up here.
So you decided to go into filmmaking. Did you know the specific genre you were going to get into, or did that just happen by accident?
Yes, I went into filmmaking specifically because I wanted to cover wrongful convictions, and I knew that this was always a cause that was really, really important to me. When I was like, I don't know, 20 years old, I think, I read Reuben Carter's book called The 16th Round, and it's such a great book. I'd recommend it. It's still, to this day, my favorite book, and I read it, 2 decades ago.
Wow.
Anyways, I read that book and it was all about a wrongful conviction, about Reuben Carter's wrongful conviction. And that's the book that got made into that Denzel movie called Hurricane years later. I don't know if you've
Yes,
seen
I remember that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the book that the movie was based on, and it's Reuben Carter's true story. So anyways, I'd read that book and it really just left, like, it impacted me and it left a mark and always stayed in my mind. And I just had a real soft spot for this cause. And then years later, like, obviously everybody in the world listened to Serial. And so I heard Serial, and that story was also very similar, to the, in a lot of ways. It was obviously a different set of circumstances, but it was very similar to that book I read. And that really kind of reinvigorated in me that I wanted to do something around that cause. And so after I listened to Serial, did you listen to Serial, by the way?
I've listened to some of it, but I need to go back and start it because I know it's a whole, like, you have to follow it, like the whole, but now that you're reminding me, I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure I listen to this.
Yes. So I listened to that, and like the rest of the world, was totally hooked. My husband came home one day and was like, there's a podcast you have to hear. And I don't like podcasts, actually. I don't listen to them only because I love the content, but like, I'm a visual person, so I need the imagery to go with it. So I never used to listen to podcasts, I should say. And he was like, no, I know you're not a big podcast fan. This is before podcasts were really big anyways. And I said, okay, let me give it a try. And we listened to it, and I was hooked completely. And then we listened to the next episode, and at the end of it, I was like, well, I think this guy's totally innocent, and it's really, really unfortunate and unfair what's happening to him. And so I wanted to help. So I wrote to the family and to see if there's anything I can do. And I didn't hear back initially, but Serial just blew up. So I'm sure they had tons of people writing to them. And so I just decided, I met a friend here in New York, and I decided that she wasn't actually a friend. She was a stranger on Twitter. We're friends now. I had seen her tweeting, also saying that she wanted to help, and she also lived in New York. And so I reached out to her on Twitter, and I was like, hey, I also want to do something to help. Would you want to do something together? Because it's easier, obviously, to have more people involved and have more hands on deck. And so she said yes, and we met up, and we organized a fundraiser in New York City for Adnan, who is the subject of cereal. And
Wow.
think it was the very first like in-person physical fundraiser done for him. And we raised a good amount. And one night we did like a live show with music and sold tickets. And I made the Free Adnan shirts. And I think that was where they got started, those shirts.
Yeah.
And it was pretty successful. And then we donated the funds to the family. And that was 5 years ago. And then over time, we have, become friends with the family and know them really well. And
Amazing. You're like a saint.
uh, no, not at all. But I was like, I wanted to do something, right? And I was like, what? It's so funny because when I feel like for a lot of people, and myself included, when you want to help a cause, it's so hard to figure out what to do because you feel like this minuscule little one person in this whole big world with huge problems, and you're like, what can I really do? And that's so like debilitating that you can just be like, I'll just do nothing and I'll just go about my regular day because I can live in my bubble and just keep doing what I do every day and not do anything because I just don't know what to do. So it's not like people don't want to do something. They just don't know where to begin or what could even make an impact,
And what I find is sometimes when you go to kind of sign up to help, sometimes they're either have too many people or you don't hear back from them, and it's very frustrating because a cause to me that was very important was mentoring foster children. And I would contact the different homes around New York and the tri-state area, but I didn't have a lot of luck hearing back, and I was very disappointed because I knew they didn't have enough help. And they
Yeah.
needed more, strong kind of role models in this business to kind of help them and teach them, anywhere from sports to, certain educations or just business or motivational or just to be there. And yeah, I was disappointed by that.
I had the exact same experience. Before I ever started doing any of this, I also wrote to some nonprofit organizations because I thought I would just volunteer. That's like
Yeah.
the first thing that you think you can do. And it's unfortunate because no one got back to me either. Nobody at all from any organization. But I think the tough part for them, and my brother is a director of a nonprofit in a different area, but knowing the ins and outs of how he works, I've gotten to see that they just don't have the funding to go through all the inquiries that come through. And so they're trying to do so much with the little bit of funding and money that they have. And so they always have small teams and they have so few resources to do so much. And they're also kind of like the same thing, like one small organization trying to solve a big problem. It's like us being one person trying to figure out what to do when you see like like foster children or wrongful convictions is such a big issue. And you as a person are like, what do I do? They kind of have a similar situation because they just don't have the manpower and the staffing to get back to everyone. And then not only to get back to everyone, but to train all those people on what to do once you start your volunteer job. So it's a really like, I don't know, it's like the chicken and the egg thing.
It
But
is,
I had that experience.
which is a lot like filmmaking.
Say that again?
With the chicken and the egg is a lot like filmmaking or being getting a film made.
Yeah, yeah, that too.
So it kind of relates to that. So let's get fast forward to you guys get in touch with the family. You do the fundraiser and you raise the money for the family. And this was 5 years ago you did this?
Yeah, I think so. 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, but right around then.
Yeah. So you're still working in fashion at this time, but you're still connected with the family.
Yeah.
And then when did the idea for the documentary, how did that all come about?
So first of all, the family is just the most wonderful people. I mean, some of the most wonderful people I've ever met. They were so fantastic and so warm and welcoming and nice and caring.
Yeah.
And so I really just developed a really, family-like relationship with them. And then Anon had a post-conviction hearing. I'm sure, for people who followed it would know, it's when his case was, or his conviction was overturned. So he was granted a new trial. And, that's a long story. It got appealed and he never ended up getting a new trial. But at that post-conviction hearing, I was there in the courtroom. And I watched the whole court proceedings. And to be honest, at that time, I was like, what should I do? Should I go to law school? Should I, I wasn't sure what to do still to help, but I was just trying to, brainstorm and stuff. And then I watched that court proceeding and I was like, there's no way in hell I would go to law school. Like the stuff I saw happening in that courtroom with the prosecutor just being dishonest and kind of like a dirty prosecutor. I was like, I'm not that, I know myself, and I didn't have the patience or personality to deal with someone like that if I happened to be the lawyer on the other side. Like, I saw that, I was like, there's no way I'd be like fuming, like my head would want to explode. So I just knew I wasn't the right person for that kind of job. And then the funny thing is, we went for dinner with the family after the court proceedings, and there was a camera crew there, and they ended up telling us, like, it's not revealed to public yet, you can't say anything, but that's HBO, they're doing a documentary. And so then I was watching them, and it was like, I think it was like 3 people that were there. It was like a producer, maybe an audio person, maybe a cameraman. Like, I know it was a cameraman, and then a producer, and maybe a third person. And I was watching this whole thing, and with a photography background, I was like, this is for HBO, like a major network, and there's only 3 people here. And I was like, I could do this. And that's where I first got the idea to do it. And luckily I was super naive, because behind the scenes, there's like hundreds more people.
Yeah.
At the time, I was like, oh, I can get 3 friends together, and I own camera equipment, and I know how to do this, and I could do this. And I was totally naive, but I'm glad I was, because I wouldn't have went into it otherwise. And yeah, I came home, and a while later I was thinking about it, and then I told my husband, and we decided I'd go to film school. So I enrolled at New York Film Academy, and I took a program there. And when I finished is when actually at school, halfway through, I started filming the doc that I currently have, Conviction, that's on Amazon. So I started filming it when I was in school, because I knew what my end goal was. So I thought, well, if I can incorporate my film assignments at school, shooting the footage that I'll need later, then I can be a little bit ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And then when school ended, I just continued filming and finished the doc that is out there now.
Wow. So let's go back real quick, because people might be listening and they're thinking, who is this guy again? What did he do? Where do I know this from? So let's step back to that. It's Anan. What was his last name?
So Anan is Syed. It's Syed, and he is the one from Serial, and he is not the one that my documentary is about. He's just that's just kind of how I decided to get into it, is when I witnessed his court case and his story. But when I did plan that fundraiser for Anan back in, I think it was 2015, I was looking for somebody who could be a speaker at the fundraiser. And my friend, who I connected with on Twitter, was like, I know somebody. He has a very similar story to Adnan. His name is Jeffrey Deskovic, and he was also wrongfully convicted of a rape and murder when he was 16 years old. And he was, sent to max security prison at the age of 17 with like a, almost life sentence. And so I said, sure, I'd love to talk to him. So she introduced us, and Jeff was great. He ended up being the speaker at the fundraiser that I did for Adnan. And then Jeff and I stayed in contact for the last 5 years, here and there. I was talking to him about, should I do a podcast? Should I go to law school? Like, what can I do to help this cause? Like, I was kind of picking his brain once in a while. And, we had great conversations about that. And then when I decided to go to film school, he was the first person that came to mind that I thought, I know really well. We have a rapport, and, I think he would trust me. And he did. I approached him and said, I'm looking to do a documentary, and I'm interested in wrongful convictions, and especially your story. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. He was so open. And that is who Conviction is about. It's about Jeffrey's case.
That's amazing. And how many years did he serve in prison?
16, I believe. Yes, 16 years.
So he lost the best years of his life.
Exactly. Yep. From 16 to like 32. And then even after he got out, there's so many, you have nowhere to live. You don't have money, it's not even like.
Well, that's exactly right. So when he was in high school, how did the whole story happen where he was pinpointed as the guy?
So there was a few different things involved that you'll definitely see in the doc. But he was 16 years old. There was a girl in his class. She was 15. Her name was Angela. She was raped and murdered. She left her house. I guess she had moved here, and I don't know too much because I haven't spoken to her family, but I only know what I've read in the papers and stuff and what Jeff has shared with me. But I think she was 15. She had moved from Colombia to Peekskill, New York.
Okay.
And so they were kind of new, new to the country. And she had never really went out by herself a lot or anything. And at school, they got assigned a photography job, like a photography project. Um, she left her house to go shoot photos really close to her house, like right behind an elementary school. There's like this wooded area. She went out there just to shoot some photos for a class project.
Yeah.
And this guy that happened to be out there was high, I think, on cocaine, and he attacked her and he raped her and he murdered her and he left her out there in the woods. And of course, then the family reported her missing and they couldn't find her. And then they questioned kids at school because obviously she, that's the last, people that would have seen her, kind of thing. And Jeff happened to be a quiet kid at school. And I guess some kids said that he was just quiet and maybe a little bit odd. And they said, you should look into Jeff. Just high school kids said you should look into Jeff. And the cops, looked into Jeff and then started feeding him information and about the case, and over months said, oh, you could help us with the case. Why don't you come to the crime scene? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? With a 16-year-old kid. And Jeff at the time said that he aspired to be a cop. So he was like, oh, this is like a chance for me to work with the guys and help them with a case and learn and stuff. And so he did all this stuff. His mom told him not to. His mom said, don't get involved in this, but he didn't listen and he did anyways. And he didn't tell her that he went to the cop station to help them out and stuff. And they started to take advantage of that and have him around. And they fed him a bunch of details about the murder that he wouldn't have known otherwise. And then they interrogated him for 7-ish hours one day without food, without anything, until they forced him to say he did it. And they said, the only way you get to go home is if you say you did this. And if you tell us you did this, then you can go home. And he was so distraught and so scared and so hungry and just out of it. And I guess they gave him coffee all day long. He'd never drank coffee in his life. So he was jittery, hungry, a kid, scared, and all this stuff. And so he said, okay, fine, I did it, kind of thing, whatever he said in his confession. And they arrested him and locked him up. And then they used the confession in court and said, he confessed to the crime, he did it. And he had no way to prove otherwise, because it was all the prosecutor, the detectives, they were all in on it. The guy who took his lie detector test, they were all kind of together in this, corruption. And he ended up in jail. And then his family didn't have money, so they didn't have a lawyer. And so he was just in there writing letters to people, trying to get people's attention, trying to get someone to help him, whether it be like nonprofit organizations, like Innocence Project and stuff like that. But as a kid, and he was just in there forever. And the crazy thing is there was DNA because the girl was raped. So there was semen, there was DNA, and it didn't match Jeff. And
do they get paid if they solve a case? Is that why they were so insistent on having him confess so they could close the case and move on?
I don't think they get paid, but they definitely get, I don't know the details of this, but from what I've heard, it's just like any other job. The better you do your job, the more you get promoted next time, the more you'll get a raise next time, the better you look at work. So if they can say, oh, we solved that case, there was a murder and, we solved it really quickly and it's solved, it's not an open case. Open cases don't look good because it's like, you can't do your job. You're not solving the crimes, which is your job. So yeah, they were happy to get it off their desk, and they had no one else. They had no other leads, and the DNA didn't match anybody else in the system, in the database. And so they pinned it on Jeff. And then Jeff tried for years to get the DNA retested because DNA technology got better and better, and there was obviously more people in the database. So if you test it again, maybe there'd be a hit. And Janine Pirro was I think she was the DA at the time, and she denied him every time and said, no, there's no reason to retest DNA. So he was just in prison for all this extra time because they wouldn't approve his DNA test to get done.
And so the family believed him the entire time, right? So he had the support of his parents.
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's not like they turned their back on him.
Yes. Jeff was raised by a single mom, but he had her support. But they just didn't have the resources or the money to do anything about it.
I mean, this is just it's just a heartbreaking situation that this kid was robbed of his youth almost.
He was, I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's your developmental years too. So like, that's when you learn, things like Jeff talks about, like, that's when you learn how to date and talk to girls but play sports and all that stuff that, he didn't get to do. And so it's really, really
Is
unfortunate.
he angry, or is he kind of forgiven and moved past it? I feel like I would be very angry. It would take a lot for me to get past that.
I said that to Jeff exactly, because I would be for sure angry. He is not. He is not. He's not. It's really, really amazing to talk to people who've been wrongfully convicted. I mean, from Reuben Carter's book to everything I heard about Adnan. I've never talked to him myself, but everything I've heard from his family and obviously in the podcast and in the news. And Jeff, in my experience, all of them have been that way. They're like, I can't live my life in anger because that'll take, they already took so much from me, they'll also take my sanity, kind of thing. And so they're just choose not to be angry because they're like, I want to at least enjoy what I can. And if I'm angry every day, I'm kind of not going to enjoy my life, which is what Jeff said.
I mean, that's an amazing attitude. And do they go through counseling after this?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's optional, I imagine, if it's up to each individual. Yeah, but I know Jeff has, but I don't know the details of that, but I know he has.
And was he compensated for this?
So he wasn't when he first got out, and then he had to go himself. He had to go and sue all these people, and then
Really?
Yeah, and then he was compensated because he won those cases against the prosecutor and the medical examiner and stuff.
So, right, because they took the remainder of his high school years and his college years and building his career. So what is he doing now for work?
So this is going to give away the end of the movie.
Okay, don't give it away. Everybody go watch Conviction on Amazon. So we can't find out. So there's the hook right there. There's the
For anyone who wants to watch it, I mean, it's amazing, and I don't want to give it away because
I'm watching it tonight. It's on my list. So I meant to watch it before, but I saw the trailer and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, watch it on Amazon. It's just a documentary short. It's just 21 minutes long, so it's a quick watch.
Wow.
What'd you say?
I said, wow, I would have watched it before.
Yeah, it really is like an episode almost. We're working on the feature-length film now, like the hour-and-a-half version. So we're just wrapping it up. We have one shoot left, and then we're in post-production, and so that'll be done soon. And then I'll tell you when that one releases for sure. But that's a much more, comprehensive. Look at Jeff's life. The short focuses more on Jeff's personal struggles and reintegrating into the world and how that is, and whether he's angry or not, things like that. The feature length of focuses on that, but then also a lot more on just the justice system in general and the shortcomings and what went wrong, and why and how it went wrong and all of that.
Because this seems to happen a lot more than anyone is really aware of.
Yes.
Most of the time we don't hear about it. It kind of goes under I mean, there's been people that have been executed.
For sure.
Turns out have been innocent. What improvements have been made in our judicial system that have helped these people?
I don't know. I'm definitely not the right person to ask about that. Jeff would definitely be the right person to ask about that. I know that as just one example, because it relates to Jeff's story. Jeff was part of the legislative team in Connecticut that got the death penalty taken away. They don't no longer have the death penalty in Connecticut. And he helped on that, so things like that, obviously. But other than that, I mean, I don't know, to be honest. I'm definitely not an expert on the legal side of any of this.
Right.
But definitely is.
No, that makes sense. It's like he's had a lot of time. But how do you, from talking to him and kind of learning about this and being passionate about this, how do you find most people are able to integrate back into society?
Well, it's so different for every single person. But for Jeff, for example, he had a lot of hardships in the beginning, in the first, I don't know how many years, 5 probably ish or more. But he was lucky that he won those settlements, because that helped him, because if you don't have to worry about money, then that takes one thing off your plate, a big thing off your plate, and then you can focus on the other things. But it's really, really, really tough for them, because like Jeff says, even till this day, and he's been out for 14 years now, and until this day, he says, I have after effects. Like, he can't deal with loud noises. If he hears a loud noise, and I've noticed it with him when I'm hanging out with him, or when I'm talking to him, or interviewing him, or even when I visited his office the first time, the phone rang, and I noticed that he visibly, got shaken up because the phone was ringing. And I asked him why that was. And he said, because in prison, and when you grow up in prison, it's all the time. Anytime you hear a loud noise, it's like you got to be on the defense. Like, something is going on. It could be someone's attacking someone. It could be the guards are attacking someone. It could be that there's, just unsafe. And so anytime you hear loud noises, he said, you really, really got to be attentive. And then you're in this cell and you can't really see what's happening. And so you have to listen and try and figure out what's happening by sound. And so loud noises really bother him still to this day. And so that's just one example to just give you an idea. But I can't even imagine, how many more of those types of things there are. Yeah, but it's really tough. It's really, really tough, because it's really unfair, because they not only go through this horrific ordeal, but then when they get back into society, people are also like Jeff said, for example, he said dating was tough for him, or is tough for him, because he meets women and they'll be like, you're very passionate about this. Why are you so passionate about wrongful convictions? And then, they'll very quickly know his story, right? Whether they Google him or he tells them. And he said lots of women have this reaction. And, I understand it, both sides of it, from the women's side and Jeff's side. But a lot of women have this reaction that, okay, you didn't do it, and I believe you and everything, but you grew up in prison. So what kind of person are you? Are you violent? Are you, and they get turned away. And so it's really unfair, because this person's been, abused and put through this horrific ordeal. And then when they're back in the real world and they think, okay, thank God, here I am, they still can't get like the stigma of it, to like off their name, kind of, to go away. There's just lots of issues.
I mean, and there's just so many people that are finally like being set free, but that's the thing, is like you step out of the jail cell, but you got to find a job, you got to get money, you got to find a home. It can be very intimidating. That's why some prisoners that do get out quickly find themselves back behind bars, because they're not able to adjust.
For sure.
Home, at least they knew like there was water and there was food and there was shelter.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I interviewed the Innocence Project lawyer just on Monday for the film, who was who was the one who pretty much let Jeff know that he's getting out of prison. Like, she was the one working on the case at the Innocence Project when Jeff got out.
Just so heartbreaking that they have to deal with this when they're like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, I say this to my friends, and it's such a minuscule comparison, but I always say, like, it makes me mad when I was younger, when you're 20s and whatever, and if your friends say you said something you didn't say, you're incensed. You're like, I didn't say that. Like, that makes me so mad. Like, why are you saying things that are untrue, or saying something I didn't say, or saying I said something I didn't say? And I can't even imagine that multiplied by, a billion, where people are believing that you did this horrific crime and that you're like a rapist or a murderer, or, it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around that. And I don't know how people deal with it.
I know, it just breaks my heart, because I'm sure that he didn't keep his friends. I'm sure.
Yeah. He has one friend that was, I think, his best friend in school, and they're still friends today, which is really,
oh God, that makes me happy.
Yeah, but I don't know about any others or anything. But for sure, I mean, people's lives go on. Like, almost 2 decades is a really long time. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so did they ever find the guy that actually did it?
They did.
God,
yeah.
Okay. So he's behind bars now, and.
Yep. And again, I don't want to totally give it away, but it's in the film. But the cops didn't really do anything. He only got found because Janine Pirro left office. Janet DeFiore came in, a new DA for Westchester County, and she approved the DNA test. And when she approved the DNA test, DNA technology had advanced so much that when they ran the DNA again, it had a hit on a guy who had also had other crimes. So he was in the system. So that's the only way. He only got caught because Jeff got the DNA tested, you know.
And that's when he was let go.
Yeah, that's when Jeff was let go. Yeah.
So why do you think district attorneys withhold certain information, or because we're hearing it now with the presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, and
Yeah.
how she withheld a lot of different things and kept people locked up for very minor crimes. They weren't murder. And you're hearing a lot about this. And then you were mentioning Judge Jeanine Pirro, that she did the same thing. What is their motivation to hurt these people?
You know, that is like the $1 million question. I have no idea. I asked the same exact question of Nina Morrison, the lawyer from the Innocence Project, just on Monday. I asked her the exact same thing because I don't know. And she also said, I don't know. Like, just, she said, she pretty much said, not in these words, but she said it's immoral, you know, but like, there's no reason to do that. There's just no reason. I don't know. I don't know why people do it.
I mean, because you're hearing it, and you know, it's been highlighted again with Kamala, you know, in the running, and Judge Jeanine, who's always on the news as well. So we're very familiar.
Yeah.
And they both seem like great women.
Yeah.
They both have their strengths, but they both also have their faults, big time.
Yes.
Which is, how can they process and sleep at night that they have affected people's lives? It's fine if the person's guilty, but at least give them a chance. But it's like they weren't even giving it a chance, and it just you wonder in this world how people sleep at night with the things that they get away with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I don't want to be negative about anybody, but I do wonder that for sure. And because they've done these things, you know, I can't even say they seem like fine people. They don't seem like.
You're right. You know, you're right. And I was trying to play the middle there. I was trying to be the moderator. You know, she wasn't running for, you know.
Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to, you know, bash somebody, but Pirro, I mean, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. Yeah, for sure. And Kamala Harris, I would love to ask her. I would love to ask her about these cases. Like, what is her thought process here? Because she doesn't seem, you know, as off as Pirro does. But I would love to ask her, like, why did she do that? I don't know.
It just doesn't make, like, you always think like people do weird or bad things because either they're terrible people, which they could be, or they're compensated somehow.
Yeah, it's like a personal gain type thing.
Yeah, but it's, where's the money trail coming from convicting somebody who doesn't even have money? Is it to keep the case going? Is it to say, I've locked up X amount of people? I mean, our whole justice system just does not make sense.
Yes, in a lot of ways, because even prison doesn't rehabilitate people, right? Like, so there's that issue too, you know. It doesn't make any sense. And in Jeanine Pirro's case with Jeff, anyways, when Jeff went into prison, she wasn't the DA. So, I mean, I could guess kind of, I can't even say understand because I can't understand, but it would make more sense to me if she didn't want to look bad. If she didn't want to look like, oh, it was my office that put this wrong guy in, this kid in prison. But it wasn't even her office. It was somebody prior to her. So why wouldn't she want to fix that wrong and come out looking like the hero? It doesn't even make any sense in her case, in Jeff's case, you know, because I could understand if she would just be protecting her own, like, I don't want to show my errors to the world, you know, I'm going to pretend it was the right thing, which is horrible because it's somebody's life. But if that's what she was thinking, that would make a little bit more sense just from a human nature perspective, I guess. But that's not, you can't even give her that because she wasn't even the one in office when Jeff went in to prison. So why wouldn't you just want to fix it?
So why is this one person given so much power to make this decision? Why can't there be other people that are saying, I disagree.
Oh,
Let's.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's the same thing in Adnan Syed's case from Serial, I believe. And, again, I'm not so well versed on the political and legal side of this stuff. But I believe it's just Brian Frosh in Maryland. He's one person who could turn it around, but completely refuses to. And I don't understand.
There's so many things in this world we'll never understand. It's just,
Yeah.
it could make your head spin,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you live in New York, and so do I, and we are having a huge crime spike.
Yes.
It's absolutely insane. I've lived in New York for 15 years. I love this city. It's the only city I would walk at night alone and enjoy the lights, and I'm safe. And
Yeah.
now I carry pepper spray.
Me too. I just bought some last week.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Too.
Whoever, I never thought in this city I would have pepper spray. And I just can't believe what has happened. And you talk about the whole thing of this whole, what is it, bail reform or something? Where people were thrown in jail, they would do something, and then you can't hold them anymore for bail. Remember, you could hold them before trial.
Uh-huh.
So they were just released. And then they would get arrested again. So we have all these criminals that are running the streets, spiking up the crime. And then most recently, there was a woman that was raped on a subway platform.
Yeah,
Third in Lexington. Huh?
Yeah, she wasn't actually raped. It was an attempted rape, right? On 63rd and Lex, the station. Yes.
In
yes.
daylight. At 63rd and Lex, very safe station, very safe area.
Yeah.
I heard today he's out because of this bail thing.
Really?
They did. He's out.
Oh, I didn't.
He is on the streets again. And I don't know what the heck they were thinking when this happened, but it makes me so upset that innocent people like Jeff lost half their life almost.
That's Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, right? Half their life to this. And then scumbags like this, who it's proven they did this, are roaming the streets.
Wait till you watch the film tonight and see the guy who really committed the murder that Jeff was accused of. Wait till you see, what he's done, and you'll be infuriated. It is.
I mean, it's just so it's just like, how do we keep ourselves safe? How do we protect the innocent? It's like, how do you create this change? And it's amazing, like people like you that are highlighting these issues and these wrongfully convicted people. And I mean, you're such an inspiration and a saint for doing that.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. I mean, it's the only thing I could think of to do that I felt like I could do, like filmmaking, because I thought, well, a lot more people watch movies than some of the other things I was thinking of doing. So I thought that's a good way to reach a broader audience. And then true crime docs have their own little following. There's all these detectives, these kind of armchair detectives at home that are on Reddit. You're trying to solve every crime. So my goal was to tell Jeff's story first, and then second, which I'm going to start working on soon, is to tell a story of someone who is still in prison, so we can actually hopefully help and with getting new information or something, to help the case along. Hopefully, if not, just bring awareness to it, but hopefully do more than that. So that's my goal. Yeah.
And so the next film subject, how do you know that person's innocent?
So I haven't decided who that person is going to be yet. But Jeff works with a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted. And so they have all of these, and I don't know what they all are, but they do have a lot of these kind of almost like a checklist of things that they look for to determine if the person is innocent or not. Of course, you can always be wrong. But one of the big things is when people go to prison and it's time for them to get parole, like serve a certain amount of time, and then it's time for them to get parole. The parole board really favors and almost only allows you to get parole if you show remorse. It's one of the things they look for. So you have to show remorse for what you did. You have to be like, I'm a changed person. When I did this, I was a child. I, was on drugs. I wasn't thinking. I'm completely, whatever your circumstance is.
Right.
And so they look for that. That's like one of the top things. And and look for other things, obviously your behavior while you were in prison and how much time you've served and all this other stuff. But if you don't show remorse, even if you have the other things, that they're looking for, they don't let you out on parole. And so the crazy thing is, if you're innocent, your option is to keep saying you're innocent and stay in prison, or maybe lie at a parole meeting and say, oh, I feel remorse for this and I did it, and now I'm a changed person. But then you're saying you did something you didn't do, which most people who are innocent also don't want to say they did something so horrific when they know they didn't. And so it really hurts them again when it's time for parole. Yeah. And so, oh God, why did I bring that up? What did you ask me? Remind me.
If the next subject for your film and how you know that they're actually innocent.
Yeah. So these people who come up for parole, who've been served, let's say 10 years, 20 years. I mean, you would want to get the hell out of there. And you have this opportunity in front of the parole board to say, oh, I feel remorse, and then go home, right? So it's just words. You could say them and go home, but majority of them do not, because they don't want to say something. They did something they didn't do that's so horrific. And that really shows innocence, because if you were a horrible human being and you're guilty of a murder, you're also probably okay with saying, oh yeah, I did this, I feel terrible, just let me go home, right? Yeah. But they're not. They have more of a moral compass. They don't want to lie and all these things. So that is something that really shows innocence. I mean, you're willing to just stay in prison just to keep your name clear in your mind. You're already in prison, you're just keeping, yeah. So that is one major thing, okay. And then there's so many other things like confessions, where majority or all, well, I should say all of the information was fed to them. They didn't have any new information themselves. The only information that they included in their confession was information that the cops already had, because that's obvious that they were fed information and they didn't actually know anything more than the cops knew, because a real killer would know everything because they were there, So there's lots of things like that. And so people like Jeff or the Innocence Project who work on these cases, they have that whole kind of, list of things that they go through to determine whether people are innocent or not. And DNA is a big factor, of course, now with the technological advances. And yeah,
and thank God for that. So how do you think you're gonna find this person? Like, what's gonna kind of resonate? Is it gonna be a murder case, or?
It doesn't matter to me, really. I've been talking to Jeff a lot about that, because he knows a lot of people who are in the same situation he was in. So maybe through Jeff, maybe through the Innocence Project, I'm not sure. I'm gonna kind of see where it goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you, and that you're, out there living your dream, but helping so many people at the same time. And God bless you. It's like, I'm looking at you like, oh my gosh, this one's amazing.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. I mean, I'm so glad I went into this a year ago, because it's been very, very fulfilling, and it's been fulfilling, and it's sad, really sad a lot of times. I was telling Jeff this, like editing the film about Jeff, like I've cried while editing the film, which is so odd because I've seen the footage so many times and it's my own film. Like I'm the one making it. And so it's like, there's no shock value, to like, but it's so sad. But then the funny thing is, at the same time, it's also been, the filmmaking process has been really fun too, because it's fulfilling, and the actual just working with a camera, I've always loved being behind the camera. So I get to do that every day, and, or very often anyways. So it's been really fun. It's been really fulfilling, and it's also been really, really sad at times, but it's worth it because of the, the upside.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Exactly. That you get to help these people. So, that's amazing. So the film that you're finishing up now, that's going to be a feature length film, will that go to Amazon as well, or will it be a different distributor?
No, I don't know right now. So we're actually in talks with a couple of distributors. So I'm not sure. So we're going to see, you know, it all the business side of it is what will help us decide that. It's like how much they're willing to pay for the film, you know, where they're going to air it, and whether it be international or just US and Canada, all that stuff. So that's something I got to work on soon. And I've been in talks with a few people, and we'll see what they come back with, but probably not Amazon, because
you would think that they would want the follow-up to this.
You would think so, but for any indie filmmakers out there, they'll know Amazon pays absolute shit to filmmaker.
Good. So it's good to kind of get a short one on there to break through, but
yeah, so it's just not worth it. It's so much work, like to make a feature length film, it takes years, you know, and so you know, and all that time, you don't get compensated for all the work that you're doing on the film, right? So so probably not Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are you going to stick in the documentary type genre, or do you feel as a filmmaker you're going to kind of branch out, or?
No, I just want to do documentaries. I love, that's a reason I got into it. And I love just real life. I'm not a big, I don't like narrative. It's so funny because my husband laughs at me. I don't like fiction books. I only read nonfiction. And he's like, what are you talking about?
That's me too.
Yeah. So no, I'm definitely going to stick with documentary. It's what I really, really want to do. Who knows, you know, what the future holds years from now, but like for now, that's what I want to do.
You know, and there's so many great stories that people have and need to be shared with the world, and it's people like you that can funnel those stories to the rest of us. So
yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
So where can they, before we wrap up, where can they find you and the film, and let's kind of go through all that so they can have a last minute reminder?
Yeah, for sure. Well, all the information is on my website, which is Gia Wertz. It's JIAWERTZ.com. My Instagram is Gia Docs, Gia DOCS, like documentaries. And Conviction is on Amazon Prime. And it's on Prime right now for a little while. So anyone who has Prime can watch it for free before it gets taken off of Prime and you have to rent it. So that's good. Yep. If anyone does watch it, if they could leave a review on Amazon, I would so appreciate that. That would be awesome and super helpful for us. And then I'll let you know when the feature length comes out and where it'll air.
Yeah, well, I'm excited, and I appreciate you sharing, you know, kind of your story and your inspiration and these you know, people that were wrongfully convicted and their stories too. So,
and thanks for having me. This is so great.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I can't wait to go watch it. And you guys definitely go to Amazon, watch Conviction. We're hearing a lot about these wrongful convictions in the news, and you know, find ways to get involved to kind of help this cause. And I know that we're going to be seeing a lot more from Gia and her helping people that are wrongfully convicted. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you guys at home, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Next to Madison. We'll see you guys next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.